Hello everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, a very good evening everyone. So my name is Kiran and I will be the trainer for Gatling performance testing. Can you guys please confirm if you are able to see the screen wherein I'm sharing the course content?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
yeah, it's visible.
Okay, nice. Okay, so I'll give a quick introduction about myself. Like I said, my name is Kiran and I come with close to 18 years experience in the software testing industry. So I started my career way back in 2003, and then I have been working as a test engineer, then test lead, test manager, and head of testing department right now. I have been doing hands-on testing from close to 18 years now, wherein I deal with performance testing using tools such as Jmeter, Gatling. I also do security testing and automation testing of front-end applications, back-end applications, and couple of DevOps tools. Coming to trainings, I have been doing these trainings for corporates and public batches from almost 15 years, and thus I have benefited nearly around 8,000 corporate employees, accounting to almost 400 corporate companies across the length and breadth of India and also outside India, especially in the Asia Pacific region, such as Japan, China, and then we have Singapore, Philippines, Vietnam, Saudi, Qatar, Bangkok, Thailand. So these are few of the countries where I have traveled extensively to deliver trainings. So that's pretty much about myself. And since it is the first session for all of us, and since this happens to be a little demonstration class of what exactly I would be teaching, I have given a little intro about my profile. If you have any questions about my profile, please feel free to put forward those questions. And before we get started as well on the course curriculum, what I'm going to explain and what material you are going to receive, let me also try to understand your profile, your interest in Gatling, or you are completely new to Gatling, or you're an experienced person in Gatling, right? So let's have that little quick introduction about each of us so that we get to know each other. So can we start with Mr. KK? Uh, you are on mute, KK, in case if you are speaking. Okay. Anyone else? Muhammad Islam, can you intro yourself?
Sure. My name is Mohammed Islam, and I'm calling from USA. So I've been working as a performance tester using Jmeter and LoadRunner. But
Hmm.
lately, my application has an issue with because when my application has a lot of API because mostly we call it web API, and Jmeter is not able to handle because Jmeter can only handle REST API, not the web API. So I was looking for something new. I'm not sure you can able to answer that question because what is the main difference with the Jmeter and the Gatling, and also like it does support web API or it just gonna be same as Jmeter does with the REST API? I need to clarify that.
Okay. Sure,
Thank
sure,
you.
Islam. Yeah, I'll answer your question. So Gatling supports different protocols. It supports HTTP, HTTPS protocols, REST APIs, GraphQL APIs, SOAP APIs, and Web APIs as well. And one of the major differences between Gatling and Jmeter is Gatling is more of a non-GUI based tool. Hence, we use a third-party editor such as Eclipse or IntelliJ editor, whereas Jmeter is a GUI based tool. And another critical difference between Jmeter and Gatling is with Gatling, it becomes pretty easy for us to run load testing for thousands of users without having any system limitations. With regards to Jmeter, there are certain limitations when it comes to load testing for thousands of users or lakhs of users, which is a dependency that it has on your computer configuration, such as the RAM that you have and the processor that you have. whereas these limitations are not there on Gatling, because Gatling uses something called as AKA framework, with the help of which it becomes easy for us to do load testing for thousands and lakhs of users. I hope that answers your question.
Is it does use the like a same as a controller, or is it just like a load engine?
It just uses the load engine in the backend, which we call it as Gatling engine, and that helps us to run your automation scripts. And this is purely written in Scala programming language. Unlike Jmeter or LoadRunner, where you have some configurations to do, in Gatling there is no such configuration. Everything is a piece of code that we write and execute it from the IntelliJ third-party editor. So no
Do you
controller as such. It's all built in.
sure? Do you know there is any mechanism they're using for two-factor authentication? Because what happened is my application, there's a developer they using cookies for the two-factor authentication. So when I run
Mhm.
the test from the Jmeter, so whatever the cookies I captured from the browser and I add it to the cookie manager and the Jmeter is working fine. But from the Jmeter, if I use any like a Azure load test or anything, is authentication, two-factor authentication is failing because it's not handling the cookies or anything. Because Jmeter is working fine because Jmeter use the cookies, but so is does the Kathleen they use any kind of mechanism for the handling the cookies or like a example, mostly like is my concern is about two-factor authentication. That makes sense.
Yes, yes, it obviously makes sense. So it comes to handling cookies. Yes, Gatling definitely helps us to handle the cookies. And since you are saying it's a two-factor authentication, there will be a little bit of manual intervention necessary while running your performance testing scripts with Gatling.
Hmm.
And sometimes there will be certain Scala scripts and libraries available which can talk to your second factor authentication device and get the SMS or get the OTP or get a secret code that you have received. So if you have an API that we can call which can get the two-factor authentication code, I think Gatling could be able to achieve this. But that's a little complicated,
Yeah,
activity
because
to
the
do.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
the what had happen is because I know it's gonna be very difficult every time you click, it's gonna ask for new code and code because the generator, the two-factor, the way they set up, but the programmer they do use the cookies. So if you bypass the cookies, and then it's not gonna ask for because it's gonna bypass the two-factor authentication. So I don't have to deal with that. That's why, like I say, Jmeter something. So yeah, like I said, thank you so much for answering. Yeah, I need to look for or see what it exactly does.
Sure, sure, Mohammed.
Okay,
And thanks
sure.
for
Thank you.
asking. I think that should set the context as well. Cool. Okay, let's go to Mr. Neil. Hi, Neil. Good evening. Could you please give a little intro about yourself, Neil? You're on mute. Okay, Pradeep, can you hear us? Prashanti.
Yeah, yeah.
Hi.
I actually, yeah, in my earlier organization, we were using Jmeter, so we would like to have the reports in the graphical form. So I learned some videos I have gone through and tried with the Gatling. But there we faced the challenge like in JMeter for each user, you can able to see the response time individually. But in the Gatling, we are getting the consolidated response times. Though that place we were unable to solve that one. So in the Gatling, how to achieve that and all.
Okay, okay. So there are different, what do you call ramp up strategies in Gatling, such as constant users per second, concurrent users per second, ramp users for certain duration. So there are a couple of strategies that Gatling provides. Using these strategies, we would be able to generate a fantastic HTML test report. I think I already have one report generated just to show it to you. Um, so here you
For
can
each
see, Yes. I mean, obviously it gives you the summary kind of report. But if you're looking for individual user reports, we have to configure the HTML configuration, and that would help us to get this achieved.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand your point. If you're coming from JMeter, yes, that's a pretty
We'll
valid
get the
question. Yes, I mean there are certain configurations which we have to enable in Gatling. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can see the response time of each user using Gatling with
Yes,
some
yes, we can
configurations.
achieve
Is
that
that correct?
with certain configurations. Yes, we can do it. So in the initial versions of Gatling, this feature is enabled, and slowly what happened is, if as you know, Gatling has also an enterprise version, which is a commercial and paid version or a licensed version. So if we use that
Yes.
commercial licensed version, your answer is there in that commercial version. But on the open source version, I will have to cross check one more time if they have still enabled that feature or they have disabled that feature. But the answer is there, just that we have to cross check if they're allowing it in the free version or not now.
Actually, that organization they are not ready to take the licensed version, so they
Hmm.
are asking us to try with the free version. So
Okay,
I
okay,
didn't get the answer for this. Thought this course would be helpful to gain that knowledge.
okay. Yeah, I mean, there are certain configurations. I think we can give it a try for sure. Not a problem. Cool. Thank you, Prashanti, for that.
Yeah.
Vikrant, hi. Could you please give me a little intro about yourself? Vikrant or Pradeep or Neil or Laprince, anyone? All of you guys are on mute. You can chat with us in case
Hi,
if you are having.
this is Pradeep. Am I audible? Hi, Banu.
Yes, 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 you are audible.
To know
Yeah,
I a little network issue. I got just now. I joined. Sorry for the delay. Uh,
yeah.
I'm working with Perigord International Life Services and working with Jmeter. Um, I would like to know about the Gatling because of my application is some complicated to testing. So I would like to the
Your voice is breaking, Pradeep. I think. Okay, is Pradeep voice breaking for the remaining folks also?
and
Yeah, it's very difficult to understand. I think he has a
Yeah,
bandwidth
yeah,
issue.
yeah.
that's
So Pradeep, I think your voice is
why
breaking. Yeah.
I had to join this. I would like to know and I had one doubt. Uh, how
Pradeep, your voice is
many
breaking. Can you go on mute,
concurrent
please?
users uh, in open source Gatling can
Okay. Laprince, can you hear us?
issue that section.
Okay. So I think I'll get started. So guys, everyone please confirm. I'm sharing my screen. I hope my screen share is visible and I'm audible. Can anyone confirm quickly if you are able to see my screen and am I audible?
Yeah, Banu, you are audible.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So thank you for those people who could give that little introduction. Thank you very much. So what I'll do is I'll help you guys to understand what I would be teaching in this course curriculum. Okay. So this Gatling is a tool that is used for performance testing, load testing, and endurance testing. And we are going to learn this course using Scala programming language. And Scala, it looks like little similar to Java. Uh, so, and in fact, when Gatling is introduced in the last few years, they have come up with Scala. Now, today they're also supporting Java as well. But Gatling and Java is not yet a successful combination. So, hence the industry is still looking, experts to work with Gatling and Scala combination. Now, let me try to help you guys understand what would be the learning objectives of this training program, right? Because a common question from for most of the participants who enroll in a training session would be like, what do I learn by the end of this course? Obviously, I cannot say that, okay, you will learn Gatling, right? I mean, that's a very simple way to say it. So I have given 4 learning objectives here. These are the key takeaways for you guys. You will thoroughly understand what exactly is performance testing, load testing, endurance testing, what are the different testing metrics that we have in performance testing world, what are the different tools available for performance testing, and why the industry is now shifting the gear to Gatling tool, and how do you build performance test cases in Gatling using Scala. So these are the learning objectives. Apart from this, obviously you'll understand a lot of other factors like how do I do API chaining, correlation, how do we generate HTML test reports, how do you integrate Gatling with GitHub, how do you integrate it with Jenkins for continuous testing. A lot of things is what becomes your learning objectives. When it comes to the courseware and the course material, I will be taking the responsibility of supplying the testing material to you guys, which includes a presentation that I have prepared. And whatever test scripts I prepare starting from day one, I'll be sharing it with you guys over a Google Drive so you can download it. And whatever performance testing test cases I have prepared, or whatever performance testing test plan I have prepared, and the questionnaire that we typically ask during the non-functional testing exercise of performance testing, those questionnaire is something which I'm going to share with you. And all the testing reports, test scripts, test plan, and all the best practices will be shared with you guys over Google Drive so that you will get the copy of it. So just to give a quick overview of how my material looks like. So I'm just showing a small material, not the detailed material. So this is something which I will prepare during the training program. This is something I have done for the previous batch that I have done for Deloitte. And this is a kind of rough notes we have prepared during the training program that helps you guys in understanding how to use this tool, right? So we'll use a lot of diagrams, try to understand all these things, right? So you will see everything over here. That's a quick notes I have prepared, which I'll be sharing it with you guys as well. Okay. And coming to the course syllabus, right? Please, ignore this day one, day two, day three, day four. They are actually meant for corporate trainings when I do. Now, chapter one is a little theoretical discussion, which talks about the basics around performance testing, where I would be explaining what is performance testing, what is this non-functional testing that we do in the world, different types of non-functional testings, such as performance testing, stress testing, load testing, soak testing, endurance testing. Apart from these, we also have a lot of non-functional testings such as security testing, accessibility testing. So I'll give a little intro to all these things, and then we'll immediately come back to performance testing. In this chapter, we will also discuss about the different testing metrics that we typically capture when we are doing performance testing. Based on the tool we use, the metrics will change. For, for example, if you're working with Jmeter, you can capture the connection time, memory, CPU utilization, throughput, response time. If you're working with Gatling, we cannot capture the connection time, but we can capture the response time. We can capture the throughput. So certain metrics are available in Gatling, certain metrics are additionally available in Jmeter. Overall, we will have a look at the different metrics that we should be considering while we generate a report or while we do performance testing. And then in the same chapter, we will also talk about the application programming interface, the APIs. We'll talk about what is an API, how do the different types of APIs available, such as SOAP APIs, REST APIs, GraphQL APIs, and what is the data description format when APIs are communicating the data between a producer application and a consumer application, or between a front-end application and a back-end application, or between a client and server. So we'll talk about different data description formats such as JSON, XML, HTML, text, YAML, etc. And then comes the very important discussion, which is introduction to client and server architecture. Now, this will help you a lot while doing Gatling performance testing test scripts. So here I'll be talking about the different components that are involved in client and server architecture, which have listed down here that you can see. We'll talk about what is an API request, an API response. We'll talk about different protocols, example HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, SFTP, MQTT, SMTP, IMAP, POP3, etc. We'll talk about the different HTTP methods that the client uses when it sends a request to server, such as get method, post, put, patch, delete. We'll also talk about request headers and response headers as they become a very critical piece of Gatling scripts. All these things will be part of your client and server architecture. So we'll spend some theory, some time understanding the theory around the client and server architecture. So I'll also give you some dynamic examples to understand HTTP request headers, response codes, response descriptions using our browser. So that's what we will learn in chapter 1. So chapter 1 will take at least 3 classes, meaning minimum 3 to 4 classes is what chapter 1 will be focused on, where our foundation on performance testing, client and server architecture will be pretty much clear, along with the metrics that we capture. Okay. So anyone has any question until this point around my curriculum until chapter 1? Is that okay? You're following me?
Yeah, it's okay, Banu. So I have a question like, if someone is not having a good programming background, right? So will it be a challenge for him, or like only the some knowledge of programming will suffice the requirement, or to learn this tool?
Yeah, that's a valid question, Neil. So the answer is, see, we don't have to be a programming expert on Scala, because Scala programming language follows something called as the regular Java kind of flow, and whatever little bit of programming knowledge that you know that you have learned during your college days or during your current functional automation, that's more than enough, because these scripts that we write in Scala are not very difficult to memorize. They're all reusable scripts. Whatever scripts we write in Gatling and Scala, you write the same scripts again and again, so that it becomes little memorized for you in the future. During the training itself, the first two classes will be little confusing. Third class onwards, you will realize that, hey, Kiran is using the same script, but the logic is changing. Kiran is using the same script, just that a new URL is coming in that place. So the simple answer to your question is, you don't have to be a real programmer. Basic knowledge of programming, basic understanding of programming is sufficient. You don't have to be a programmer.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. So that's something we'll talk on chapter 1, which will where we will spend at least 3 days of time, and sometimes even 4 days, based on how interactive we are doing and how many questions you have, right? And we'll go very slow so that each topic that I teach becomes very, very clear to you guys. Then chapter 2 will focus on the installation part of Gatling tool and whatever different prerequisites that we have to get Gatling installed. So with regards to Jmeter, it is pretty easy. If you download Jmeter zip file, that's enough. You don't have to do anything else. And obviously you need to have Java. But with Gatling, that is not the case. There is a lot of setup that we have to do. And that setup will take at least one class for us. So chapter 2 will help you install the Scala SDK, install Apache Maven, download Apache Maven, download Scala SDK, download and install IntelliJ third-party editor for writing our Gatling scripts. Then we'll download the Gatling open source version. We'll also download Java JDK, that is also necessary on our computer. Then we'll have to install the Scala plugin on the IntelliJ editor. And then we will also install a third-party editor called as Sublime Text Editor, so that we can see the Scala scripts in a nice editor. And then finally, we will set up the environment variables for all the installations that we have done. So I'll just show you the environment variables that we generally do for scale-up programming or for this Gatling. I have done that setup already. I'll just show it to you how it looks. So, so this is one setting that we will do. And then this is the second setting that we do. This is a third thing that we do. And this is the fourth setting that we do. So these are the four things that we will do to work with the Gatling tool. And obviously all the downloads and installations is something that we will achieve it. So let me show you all the downloads that I have done already. So one is this one, Apache Maven we have to download. Then we have to download Gatling. Then we have to download IntelliJ editor. Then we have to download Scala. And if you do not have Java JDK, then you have to download JDK as well. So these are the things that we will download as part of chapter 2. So this would take at least one class, meaning 1 hour session for all the participants to do it. And we will be doing it practically on your computers as well. So I will be helping you guys on your machines how to get it set up, so that from chapter 3 onwards you can follow me. So chapter 3 focuses on a feature called Gatling
Is
Recorder.
it compatible with Mac as well? Banu?
Yeah.
Is it compatible with Mac machine as well?
Yes, Prashanti. This is compatible with any operating system. Okay. Yeah. So just like any other automation tool, I mean, if you take Selenium, we have a recording facility. If you take UFT or Quick Test Professional, there is a recorder, right? Even Jmeter has a inbuilt recorder, and third-party recorders are there, such as BlazeMeter plugin, Bad Boy software. Similarly, Gatling also has an inbuilt recorder that we can use to generate, Scala scripts by executing the user actions on the browser of our choice. The beauty of Gatling Recorder is Gatling does not have any third-party recording applications. For JMeter, we have third-party recorders. For Gatling, we don't have a third party, which means the recorder that Gatling provides by default itself is enough, and it is fantastic, so that we can generate some Scala scripts for all the user actions that you do on the browser. And Gatling supports two types of recordings. One you can generate, one you can use the Gatling proxy and then set up the proxy on Firefox browser or Chrome browser and do the actions, and then the script is generated. Second option is you can first record your actions on the browser using browser developer tools, generate a HAR file. HAR stands for HTTP archive resource file. So once we generate the HAR file, then we can supply that HAR file to Gatling recorder, and then we can, generate the Gatling script. So we'll learn how to do all those things in detail, but let me quickly show it to you what I exactly mean. So I'll just open that and show it to you. So here you see we have the recorder utility for Windows operating system. And for Mac operating use system, you have to use this second recorder where it says recorder shell script. Since I'm on Windows, I'll open this Windows batch file. And this should open the user interface of Gatling recorder. Yeah, so this is a interface of Gatling using which you can generate the recorded simulations script. So here, if you see, there are two options that Gatling provides. One is HTTP proxy. This is one way or one strategy using which you can generate a recorded script. And another strategy Gatling supports is HAR converter. Using this HAR converter as well, you can generate some, Scala scripts. So we look at the practical part of it, obviously in the classes. So that's something which we'll talk about, in chapter 3. I mean, I spoke very little about chapter 3, but there are so many ways that you can do recording. In this recording process, there are a lot of options, right? So, I mean, for example, you have something called whitelist and blacklist. So you can blacklist certain calls which you don't want to record, same as Jmeter, same as LoadRunner. And you can also whitelist certain things that you want, and you can decide whether you want to generate the script in Java format or Kotlin format or Scala format. Most of the times we do it in Scala format because Scala is something that's recommended by Gatling. So we will do all these things. Let me minimize this,
I
right?
have one
And
quick
then I will,
question.
yeah.
So HR converter, it does all the transaction, whatever you do on the browser, how they do identify the transaction. Like I want a separate homepage logging, username logging. The
Mhm.
HR converter, when you do the converter to the, can they recognize as a transaction or you have a different mechanism to create a transaction?
Yeah, so good question. Something similar to Jmeter, Gatling also has it. So when we use this HTTP proxy and start the recording, so let me just show it to you. See, so here you can add the tags. Adding a tag is same as adding a transaction. So I will say visit homepage, and then you click on add button.
Yeah,
Whatever
that's
actions
similar
you
to
do on the
Jmeter.
browser,
So this is like a similar to Jmeter, but
yes,
I was talking about the HR converter because you see,
on
I
the
do
HR.
use, yeah, I do use the
Mhm.
HR file in the Jmeter, but problem is you have to create each transaction with one HR file. Then you have to do convert one by one. It's not a lot of time consuming. So that's why I
Correct.
was asking if you do the HR converter, does any mechanism to create a transaction or you have to do one transaction at a time?
Yeah, I think you gave the answer. It's one transaction at a time, or do all the transactions once, generate a HAR file, convert to Gatling script, and then after we have converted to Gatling script or the Scala script, then we can
Mhm.
break it down into multiple transactions,
Oh,
which
okay.
means
So
we
in
should be
the okay, so after the converter and Scala can allow
after
you
the
to
script
create
is
a
generated. So I'll show it to you. So
shoot.
your question is pretty valid. I also face similar challenges. So let's say this is a sample script that I'm showing it to you guys, which Gatling has generated after your execution, after your recording is completed. So here, what you can do is, so this could be one transaction, this could be another transaction, and this could be another transaction. So ideally, it will record everything in one transaction. We can put it in different execution blocks and then call it as a separate transaction. So the possibilities are there, but it is not an automated one. We have to do it manually if you are coming through HAR recording facility. Okay.
So it's like I'm sorry to be taking too much time. So it's like each click is gonna generate separately.
Yes, because every click will have a separate request header. So it will generate a separate one. In case if it is clubbing multiple ones, then we have to break it down into two execution blocks like
Oh, okay.
this.
Okay, this makes
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a sample Gatling script that I'm showing it to you that we have generated when you record the user actions on a browser. So this is a script the tool has generated, and I have used a proxy to generate this kind of script. And the transactions are pretty much possible. Here you see I was writing my own transactions, launch the home page, enter the username password, and get into the authentication page. So I'm writing my own recordings, in my own transactions during the proxy recordings. Okay. So in this chapter, we'll talk about how to generate the scripts. Like, so there are so many scripts that we can generate. And by default, there is a script that the tool already has generated. So you can use this script as well. So this is a detailed script where I have done, multiple CRUD operations such as adding a computer, deleting a computer, searching for a computer, updating a computer. And I have renamed the transactions as well so that it becomes easy for us to understand which transaction is taking how many seconds to get the response from server. So understanding this script is also pretty much important. And this is one of the major objectives that we are going to do in chapter 3. Now, after understanding the script, obviously we'll have to run it. So to run the script, Gatling provides, again, execution engine, which is also part of our chapter. So we'll use this Gatling Windows batch file to run it on our Windows machine. And if you're coming from Mac operating system or Linux operating system or Ubuntu operating system, you have to use Gatling.shell script. So using this Gatling file, we will be running our recorded scripts of Gatling or Scala scripts in chapter 3. So chapter 3 looks very simple, but then it becomes very interesting as we explore each of these options in chapter 3. This itself will take at least 3 classes or 4 classes of time. Then chapter 4, So in chapter 4, what we will be doing is we will talk about load setup configuration, where I'll be talking about different aspects, right? So for example, until chapter 3, I was not even talking about IntelliJ editor, right? So let me open my editor. So here you see I have an IntelliJ editor where I have written some Gatling scripts, and you see on the left hand side I have certain Gatling scripts that I have developed, you know, for one of the batches that we have completed recently. So how do you come to this editor? What is the setup that you have to do? How do we write these scripts? Is it easy to write the scripts or difficult? Like Neil had this question, right? So should I be understanding this programming language? Is this easy to set up? So I have a way to make you guys memorize this. There is a step-by-step procedure that if you follow, this becomes pretty easy. You'll not even forget them. Okay, you don't need any logical explanation over here. It's all about understanding the syntaxes and the execution workflow of Gatling. So once we understand that in our first test case itself, this becomes pretty much easy. So this is what chapter 4 will be talking about. Apart from that, I will also be talking about the different strategies that we have to execute our automation test cases for different types of users. You know, whether you want to ramp all the users at single shot, or you want to ramp them at different intervals of time, or do you want to achieve concurrency testing or constant users per second. The different what do you call ramp up strategies. So let me show it to you, the different ramp up strategies that I have here. I have just commented it out so that I don't execute it now. So these are few of the strategies that we use, like do not do nothing for some seconds, then at once execute 10 users, or I can say ramp minimum 30 users during the first 5 seconds, or I can say ramp some number between 10 to 20 users during the first 8 seconds, or I can say generate at least 35 users during the first 10 seconds. So like that, we can do lot of ramp up strategies, and you don't have to memorize them again, because there is a documentation clearly available from Gatling on their website. We will refer the website, we'll understand the syntax, and then we'll start using it. So that's something part of our chapter 4. And just like Jmeter has timers, LoadRunner has think time or timers, Gatling is no exception. We can write certain timers even in Gatling. For that we use pause statements. So here if you see, I have certain pause statements. So here you see pause for 8 seconds, pause for 22 seconds, pause for 15 seconds. If you want to generate a random number, I can say 15 to 30. So this will generate a random time between 15 to 30 seconds, and it will work. So like that also you can generate random think times. We'll look at all those things. And then we will do data driven testing. Now that's something which we do in Jmeter using CSV dataset config. Similarly, Gatling also supports data driven testing. We call it as feeders, and there are different feeder strategies in Gatling: circular, random, queue, shuffle. These strategies will help us to decide whether you want to repeat the data in the Excel sheet if the number of users are more than the data present in the Excel sheet. Okay, so we look at this data driven testing and CSV feeders as well. Then we also have this repeat commands, which can be used to do endurance testing or soak testing, where you can run it for what you call continuous duration, for infinite loop as well. And obviously, in any automation, it is important for us to see whether you can run scripts from GUI mode and non-GUI mode. So GUI mode obviously means I would be able to run my scripts from this particular area, right? So I can run it from here. See, if I run this script, the terminal opens, and from the terminal I can put some commands and it will execute. Otherwise, I can also provide certain commands on my command prompt and then execute. So there are certain commands that Gatling provides to run your automation scripts from the CLI mode as well. So we look at all the different ways to execute Gatling scripts, both GUI mode and non-GUI mode. And then you can generate a test report either in CLI format, which is a unit testing report kind of thing for you. And you can also generate a fantastic HTML report. Once you generate a HTML report, the report looks like this. This is a very basic report I'm showing to you, not a detailed report, but you can generate multiple reports like that. And you can get into the low level details as well. If you're looking for transaction based, you can also come to this diagram and see the transaction based, right? So here you see the throughput. So number of responses per second. This is the throughput diagram that Gatling is giving. I ran this only for 2 users or 1 user. and hence you do not see too much of data in the graph. But when we run for thousands of users, the graph looks very neat, detailed, and more informative. So we look at how to generate CLA reports, HTML reports, and then how to configure the percentile values, how to configure the lower bound and upper bound. Now, these are the common requirements in most of the projects. You may not understand this right away, but let me try to help you understand. So here, if you come, in case if you are using Gatling already, you will see that here you will see 90 percentile, here you will see 95, here you will see 99, but I have customized it to work only for 50 percentile of users, 60 percentile, 70 percentile, and 80 percentile. So how do we configure this in Gatling? That's something which I'll showcase. And Gatling always compares, the transaction with 800 and 1200 milliseconds as the benchmark. But let's say in your project you have a different benchmark, your appdex is different. So I have customized it to 500 and between 500 to 1000 and then greater than 1000, because that's a customization we can do based on the project, meaning you can customize the HTML test report according to your requirement. But there are limitations as well. We cannot customize everything that we want. Gatling allows only few things that we can customize. So I'll show you what are those things which we can customize in chapter 4. Let me take a pause here. Are you all with me until this point? Anyone has any question?
So
I hope I'm
one,
audible, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So I do have one more question. So all the setting need to be done on the client side. Nothing has to be done with the server side.
Yes, that's right.
So you have to rely on exactly the HTML report. Nothing else you can do. Like compare, like you see, most of time whenever we run the test results, the programmer does not agree with the report. So, but is nothing can be configured on the server side.
Yeah, yeah, true. That so no configuration has to be done on the server side. These configurations has to be done on your Gatling tool. On your client side only, we will do these settings, and it is a one-time change.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Then on chapter 5, we will be focusing more on REST APIs and how to achieve REST APIs performance testing. So here I will be giving a quick intro about get APIs, post APIs, put, patch, delete APIs, and how to test, these different APIs using Gatling for performance testing. So we'll take different APIs. For example, I'll take APIs which are having authorization, such as access token, bearer token, and APIs which do not have authorizations, meaning they are public and unsecured APIs. So we'll take minimum, three different project examples of RESTful APIs, SOAP APIs, and see how we can test the performance of APIs using Gatling tool. And we'll also do data-driven testing. And apart from that, we will also see how do we add a response code assertion, response body assertion, response time assertion, response headers assertion. Assertions are the conditional checks, right? To check whether the body I'm getting from server is correct, to check whether the response code I'm getting from server is correct, to check whether the time taken by server to process the request is within the acceptable limits or it exceeded the SLA. Lot of functional checks we will do in Gatling, and we call those functional checks as assertions. So that is something which we will discuss in assertions topic as well. And more importantly, we will talk about correlation. Correlation is also called as API chaining, where the response of one API can become a request for some other API, right? Because the APIs are dependent, right? For example, the access token you received in login API is necessary to do certain actions in the subsequent APIs, and you might also need it to log out from the application or to log out from the API. So correlation is that strategy where you extract the response of one application or one API and supply it as request or input to some other API. So we'll see that process as well in Gatling. Okay, and we will see how do we run again our API scripts in in GUI mode and non-GUI mode, how to generate reports in HTML format and CLI format. And finally, obviously, chapter 4 will take minimum 3 more classes. Chapter 5 will take at least 6 classes. And finally, the last chapter 6, right? Chapter 6 is where I'm talking about integration of Gatling with other tools. So here I will teach how you can integrate Gatling with your Git and GitHub, or Git and GitLab, or Git and Bitbucket. So, I mean, most of the times the industry is interested in GitHub. So I'll be specifically talking about GitHub. But if the entire batch, if the participant says, hey, we need it for GitLab, then I can switch to GitLab and show it to you. But the process is the same. There is no rocket science difference here. How do we do version control management of the scripts that we have done in Gatling will be achieved when I teach you Git. And how do we take a backup of all these Gatling scripts into GitHub, so that you have a backup on the GitHub and you can maintain the version control management on the GitHub. That is also something we will talk in this chapter 6. Then I'll talk about how to install or how to integrate Gatling with Jenkins, so that we can do continuous testing. Meaning you can schedule certain timers or schedulers in Jenkins, so that the execution happens on a scheduled date and time. Apart from that, we will also configure email notifications, so that once Jenkins executes the Gatling scripts, you will be receiving email notifications once the script executed has passed or has failed. And another way is you can also integrate Jenkins, Gatling, and GitHub, three things together. So that the moment I push my code in GitHub, immediately Jenkins will recognize that Kiran has pushed his latest script on GitHub. Jenkins will run the script. So that continuous testing is also something that I'm going to show you. And there are a couple of plugins that we will install on Jenkins, so that you get a nice visualization report even on Jenkins. So
Hey,
these are the
I'm
three major integrations that we do in chapter 6. Yeah, sorry,
can
please go
you
ahead.
do, yeah, sure. Can you do the Azure pipeline?
Sorry, do what?
Can you integrate with the Azure pipeline?
Azure pipelines. We can give a try. Though it is not part of my curriculum, I can do one attempt and then I can, get to that. Right now, I can give it a try. I cannot assure that I will definitely teach it, because that's not part of the curriculum. But yeah, if time permits, yes, we can give it a hands-on. So these are the integrations that we do with Gatling, Git, GitHub, Jenkins integrations. And that's the, I mean, obviously chapter 6 will take another minimum 3 to 4 classes as well. Overall, the course duration would be around 18 to 20 classes, which means around 20 hours is what you can think of. A few hours here and there, it might extend as well based on how well we communicate. And this is going to be purely a practical training program. All the chapters you see are practical hands-on training, except chapter 1, where we are focusing more on the theory. And when it comes to the notes, let me also show you the notes that I have. Right. Yeah. So here there are certain notes that I have prepared which are common. For example, this performance testing test cases, sample test report that you can use, the testing checklist that we typically follow, the test plan that we prepare in general, the non-functional questions, the non-functional requirements questions that we ask to the development team before you start the performance testing. So those are the things that I'll be sharing with you guys as well. And this is a detailed lab setup that I will be doing on your machines when I'm teaching you chapter 2. Okay. So that's pretty much about what I will be teaching. And when I'm teaching this integration of Gatling with Jenkins and other tools, I also have a detailed document here. See how to integrate Gatling and Jenkins. So I've given detailed steps here. So the notes will look something like this when I share notes with you guys, so that you can happily follow these notes and just do it on your machines. So this notes is a detailed step by step along with screenshots. Okay.
Also, recording will be available.
Yes, Prashanti, the classes are getting recorded and will be
And
shared with
so
you
maybe
guys.
sometimes we may be absent so that to recollect the thing.
Yes, I understand that. Yes, the classes will be recorded and you will get access to the recordings as well. And I will also give you guys a number on the group chat. Maybe you guys can please make a note of it. In case if you have any questions on the training portion, please reach out to Mr. Kumar. His WhatsApp number is given on the chat. And this is an India number. So I'll also say +91. I have given that message on the chat window. So please talk to Mr. Kumar sir if you have any questions with regards to the class timings, the notes, recordings, etc. Any questions, please talk to Mr. Kumar and he will be able to help you on that. Right now, if you have any questions on this quick demonstration of what exactly we'll be doing in training, please go ahead and ask those questions. I tried to answer most of your questions and made it clear like what we do.
So,
So anyone has any,
so,
yeah.
so Bhanu, which application we will be using to create the script and to make the scenarios?
Not just one application. We will be using different applications. So for example, I have a healthcare application. There is a e-commerce application. There is a REST APIs based live application available. So we'll not stick to one website or one API. I will be rotating around at least six different applications so that you get a realistic feeling of how the performance testing will be conducted when I switch from one application to another application. So your exposure will be more. So the answer is six applications, minimum 5 to 6 applications.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay. Now today happens to be the demo class where we just spent our energies trying to make you guys understand what we teach. From tomorrow onwards at the same time, chapter 1 will start. And if you guys understood what I'm going to teach and that's something what you are looking at, please talk to Mr. Kumar, enroll in the training program, and then he will guide you on the next steps as well.
And Bhanu, workload modeling will also be covered in this class? Or?
Yes, it would be part of it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. So, Laprince, do you have any question? Prashanti, do you have any other questions? Cool. Thank you very much then. Thank you, Prashanti, Neil, Laprince, and Mohammed. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Please talk to Mr. Kumar sir and he'll guide you on the next steps if you are interested in enrolling. Thank you for joining. You have a good day or good night. Take care. Stay safe. Bye bye.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks, Manu.
Thank you.